You know, life has a way of revealing the truth when we least expect it. We spend so much time moving forward, chasing goals, building relationships, doing everything we can to be there for others. But have you ever stopped, just stopped? Have you ever turned away, even for a moment, to see who's actually still standing with you? Because that's when the truth shows up, not when you're giving, not when you're available, but when you take a step back, that's when you find out who truly values you, not just for what you do, but for who you are. And the reality is, some people will drift away, it'll sting, but the ones who stay, the ones who check in, the ones who don't need anything from you except your presence, those are the people who matter. So today I want to talk about the power of turning away, not as a test, but as a way to understand the depth of your relationships, your worth, and the strength that comes from knowing who's truly in your corner. Let's dive in. Would you like me to refine the tone further or add more storytelling elements? We often measure loyalty by presence, who stands with us in moments of success, who celebrates our victories, and who enjoys the good times. But true loyalty isn't about who shows up when everything is easy. It's about who remains when things get tough, when we are no longer offering something in return, when there is no benefit to staying. The real test of any relationship is not found in moments of abundance, but in periods of absence. When we take a step back, whether by choice or circumstance, people reveal their true nature. Some disappear the moment our energy is no longer constantly directed toward them. They were there for convenience, for what they gained from the connection, not for the bond itself. Others, however, remain steadfast. They don't need reminders or incentives to stay close. Their loyalty isn't conditional on our availability or what we can provide. It's in the silence, in the pauses of life, where we see the difference between those who are merely present and those who are truly loyal. Absence strips away the distractions and reveals who values us for who we are, not for what we do. Those who check in, who reach out when they have nothing to gain, who hold space for us even when we aren't actively giving, those are the ones who embody real loyalty. There's an undeniable clarity that comes when we allow space in our relationships. It can be uncomfortable, even painful, to realize that some connections were built on necessity rather than genuine care. But it also highlights the rare and invaluable people who remain. These are the relationships that deserve our time, our energy, and our trust. They are the ones that withstand distance, difficulty, and change. When we take a step back, we give people the opportunity to show us who they truly are. Many relationships exist in a cycle of constant interaction, where our presence and effort maintain the connection. But what happens when we stop initiating? What happens when we stop being the one to always check in, to always give, to always be available? The answer is simple. Some relationships fade, while others remain strong. Loyalty is not about words or promises made in moments of comfort. At times, stepping back can feel like a risk, as if we are testing the people around us. But it's not a test, it's a truth that exists whether we choose to see it or not. Some people stay close because they need something from us, whether it's support, attention, or validation. When that need is no longer met, they naturally drift away. And while that realization may be painful, it is also liberating. It frees us from the illusion of loyalty built on dependency rather than genuine connection. Absence creates space for clarity. It filters out relationships that exist out of habit from those that exist out of choice. The people who matter don't need to be constantly reminded of your value. They see it, they respect it, and they choose to stay. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Loyalty is easy to claim, but difficult to prove. Many people will stand beside you when life is good, when you're constantly present, giving and engaging. But the true measure of loyalty isn't found in those moments. It's found in what happens when you turn away, when you are no longer reaching out, when you step back to focus on yourself. That is when people's true intentions become clear. Some connections exist purely because of what you offer, your time, your energy, your support. These relationships can feel deep, but they are often conditional. The moment your presence is no longer a source of benefit, some people will fade away without a second thought. It's not because they actively chose to leave, but because their connection to you was never about you. It was about what they could gain. And that's a hard truth to face. But on the other side of that realization are the people who remain, the ones who don't need anything from you to continue valuing your presence. They check in, they notice your absence, they make an effort without being asked. Their loyalty is not tied to convenience, but to care. They don't just stay when you are providing something, they stay because your existence in their life matters to them. Stepping away allows you to see who truly chooses you, not just when you are actively giving, but when you are simply being. Loyalty isn't about constant proximity, it's about consistency and care. The ones who remain, even in your silence, even in your absence, are the ones who prove that their connection to you is never about what you could do, but about who you are. We often assume that the people around us will always be there, that the bonds we build are strong enough to withstand distance and time. But the reality is, not every connection is built on a foundation of true loyalty. Many relationships are held together by routine, by mutual benefit, or by the simple habit of constant presence. It's only when you step away that you begin to see who stays and who slowly drifts into the background. Absence has a way of revealing truths that presence often masks. When you are constantly available, people have no reason to question their access to you. They assume you will always be there, always reaching out, always keeping the connection alive. But the moment you stop, whether by choice or by necessity, true loyalty is not about how often someone interacts with you when you are present. It's about whether they make the effort when you are not. Some people will fade because their connection to you was never about the bond itself. It was about what you could provide. Maybe it was emotional support, validation, or just the comfort of knowing you were always there. When that dynamic changes, so does the relationship. The people who truly value you will not let distance or silence erase their presence in your life. They will check in, not because they need something, but because they care. They will stay, not because it's convenient, but because your presence in their life matters. In the absence of effort, relationships reveal their true strength. Loyalty is not something people declare, it's something they demonstrate. It's easy for someone to claim they will always be there, that they will stand by your side no matter what. But words are effortless. The real test of loyalty comes when you step back, when you stop reaching out first, when your presence is no longer guaranteed. That's when you see who stays, who checks in, and who quietly disappears. In the noise of daily life, it's easy to overlook the depth of our relationships. Constant interactions can create the illusion of closeness, but true connection is revealed in stillness. When you take a step back, you remove the convenience factor. You no longer serve as a constant reminder, and without that, people have to make a choice, to maintain the connection or let it fade, and that choice speaks volumes. Some people will drift away, not out of malice, but because their loyalty was never to you, it was to the benefits of having you around. Maybe you were their source of support, motivation, or validation. When you stop providing that, their need for the relationship disappears. It's a painful realization, but an important one, because on the other side of that truth are the people who remain. They don't need you to be constantly present to remember your value. They don't stay because of what they can get. They stay because they genuinely care. These are the people who check in, who ask how you are even when you've been distant, who don't need you to remind them of your worth. Absence doesn't weaken these connections, it strengthens them. Because real loyalty doesn't need to be fed to survive, it exists on its own. Silence has a way of revealing what words often hide. In a world where constant communication is expected, we assume that relationships thrive on frequency, on how often we check in, how much we share, how present we are in each other's lives. But true connection isn't measured by how much we talk. It's measured by what remains when the talking stops. When you take a step back, when you choose silence over constant availability, you create space. And in that space, people reveal themselves. Some will notice your absence, reach out and make the effort to maintain the bond. Others will disappear, not because they meant to, but because their connection to you was dependent on your presence, not on genuine care. Real relationships don't require daily maintenance to survive. They don't demand proof of loyalty in every moment. The strongest connections exist beyond immediate interaction. They withstand time, distance, and the quiet moments in between. Those who truly value you don't need constant reminders of your worth. They recognize it whether you are near or far, speaking or absence doesn't break real bonds, it strengthens them. If a connection fades the moment you stop putting in effort, it was never a strong connection to begin with. True loyalty and genuine care don't vanish just because communication slows. Instead, they endure, waiting for the right moment, always present beneath the surface. It's easy to believe that relationships require constant proof of commitment. But the reality is, The people who truly matter don't need convincing. They stay, they check in, and they remain, not because they have to, but because they want to. And that is how you know who is truly with you. Stepping away isn't about testing people, it's about gaining clarity. When you are always present, always giving, always showing up, it's easy to assume that the connections in your life are strong. But what happens when you stop, when you take a step back, to focus on yourself, to rest, to simply be? That's when the truth surfaces. Some people will notice your absence not because they miss what you do for them, but because they genuinely miss you. They will check in not out of obligation, but out of care. Others will disappear not because they meant to, but because their attachment to you was tied to convenience. When you are no longer the one initiating, when your presence is no longer guaranteed, the depth of those connections becomes clear. This isn't about punishing anyone or expecting constant attention. It's about understanding who values you beyond what you offer. Relationships should be built on mutual effort, not one-sided maintenance. If someone only stays when you are actively keeping the connection alive, is it really a connection at all? Turning away doesn't mean closing the door on people, it means allowing space for those who truly belong in your life to step forward. If a relationship weakens, the moment you stop putting in all the effort, then it was never strong to begin with. True loyalty, real care, and deep connections remain steady, even in silence, even in distance. It may feel uncomfortable to take that step back, but it is necessary. Because in that space, in that quiet moment of reflection, you see who truly values your presence. Not just when you are giving, but when you are simply being.